Okay, welcome everyone to another week of our Easy 900 training, which is the Azure Fundamental. So you're welcome to this platform, Textiles platform. Again, if you're joining us for the first time, my name is Oluwatosin Anishere. I'm a consultant as well as Microsoft certified trainer, a mentor and instructor for textilers, specialized in Azure and Microsoft 365 technology. But for this series of training, I will be taking you on Azure technology, which is the fundamental for Azure. Okay, here is just some housekeeping rules. If you need to ask question or probably contribute to the learning, kindly use the raise your hand icon. And if you're not speaking, it would be nice for you to mute your mic. If you need to ask a question, you can use either the raise your hand or drop your question in the chat window. Sometimes if probably being overlooked, I did not see it, you may unmute your mic to call my attention, so that I can hear out your question. So those are the housekeeping rules that I have for us. Last week we started the module 2 training last week, and we stopped at the point where we have to do a walkthrough. Okay, I would like to inform us that for the Azure portal, we haven't gotten a response yet. Sincere apologies. A response yet regarding the plans for subscription. Although all hands on deck to help us out with this. However, I would use my environment to explain as well as an alternative. Now, this alternative is for those who are willing to, try or take the step. And what's the alternative? The alternative is basically using my Visual Studio benefits. Okay, so the way it works, for me, I have my Azure portal, and this particular slide here is just to explore the Azure portal. And for us to do that, we need to go to the open our browser. So it's supported on both what's it called, Chrome. Besides Edge, it's supported on Chrome, supported on Mozilla Firefox. These are supported browsers besides Edge. But I'll bring up my Edge browser. So all we have to do is go through. Okay, sorry. Let me use in private so that any SSO would not apply for me. No private window. Okay, so the address, or should I say URL, is usually portal.azure.com. That's the URL. So in here, right now, for those of us on the call, I'm not sure if some of us already have the account. I just want to assume that most of us do not have the account yet. That's my assumption. Okay, but I'll still take us through the alternate method, which is the my Visual Studio, while we wait for response from admin. Okay, so here we type the account name. So for mine, I'll be using my Outlook account. Okay, I see someone's hands up. Please go ahead.
Yes, you said do not have the account. What account are you talking? Is it an Outlook account or an Azure account?
No, not the account. We're supposed to have like a subscription plan for us so that we can have that lab environment. Right now, the conclusion has not been made yet. Is it conclusion, or we are still awaiting response? Let me use that word. So in the meantime, I would show us an alternate way in which we can have the Azure subscription. I don't know if you get. So is the alternate way of having the Azure subscription such that you also can have access to an environment for practice.
Okay,
Do you
so are you
understand?
saying that you will sort it out for us, or we have to? Because I'm not quite sure what is involved and how to go about getting the account and all that.
Okay. Probably before I move on to signing into Azure, let's do this. So there's a link called my.visualstudio.com. I'll equally share this in the meeting chat. And now this particular link, the expectation is, or the requirement is, you must have a Microsoft account, okay, for you to be able
Okay.
to access this. Now I would use my already known Microsoft account, which is Outlook. So this can be your personal account, it can be a work account, but it has to be from Microsoft. Okay, let me sign in. Okay. Now, once you sign in, because you are doing it for the first time, it should give you a room to sign up. Now, I have done my before, so what it does is it just takes me directly to the Visual Studio page. Okay, so what I don't know if we can have a volunteer so that I can guide you through how you can have this, or right now on the
Hello,
call, can we
I'm
try
already on the site. Sorry, I'm already on the site. So I'm trying to log in. So when I log in, you let us know what we should do, right?
sure, that's what
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
waiting for. Okay, now once that is done, it should take us to this landing page. Okay, but my environment is ready made, and that's why what you just see is the page. But for you, we need to sign up for first of all, which means provide some details and all. Now the point here is when we try to activate this Azure monthly credit, if you click on activate, now note it will deduct it will request for your card, and it will deduct the naira equivalent, which is $1. The $1 will be deducted from your account. Okay, and you have access to that for a month. Okay, after 1 month, when you cancel the subscription, this charges that was made from your account will be refunded to you. Okay, now this is something optional, because when it comes to money and charges, we're always being careful on the call. So but that's the way it is when it comes to this what's it called, Azure subscription, or activating the Azure subscription. It will request you to enter your bank details, and the reason for that is that confirmation that the account is active, and it's an account that can be billable in the future. Okay, so they deduct $1 equivalent, you get $150 Azure subscription available for a month. Now, once it's tending towards the end of the month, we uh, we have to cancel it so that there's not a recurring deduction on the account. So once it is cancelled, Microsoft usually, because it has happened to me, will refund that $1 equivalent that was deducted from your account. Now, what Textiler is trying to do from the end is to, reach out to Microsoft if we can get this Azure subscription that we can share with us on the call. I'm sorry, made that available for us, and we can use it for our lab environment. I don't know if you're understanding me, please.
Okay. Yes, I do.
All right.
Okay. So we're waiting for feedback from Microsoft, right?
Exactly. We tech sellers is waiting for feedback. However, this is an alternate method. It's like another workaround pending the updates or feedback, however you may want to put it. I don't know
Okay.
if we are following.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right, please. But for this, what's it called? Visual Studio, we can still sign up. So I had someone on the call saying to say, I'm on it. We can sign up. The only thing is, once you sign up, depending now, this is individual. You may decide, okay, it's okay. I don't mind, that charge being deducted. I want to learn personally on my own after it to be deducted, then we can click on activate. But if not, we can just hold on, just have this environment up to this point, and we can now hold on till we get updates. Okay, I see someone else's hands up. Please go ahead. Amaka, please go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask. I was on the page, so I'm there now. I wanted to know if we're supposed to download Azure or Azure DevOps. There are two Azure here.
Okay, so it's not a matter of download. So you will see two things just like on my screen, Azure DevOps and Azure. So our focus is actually just Azure, not the Azure DevOps. We're not doing DevOps right now. Remember, we're just doing fundamentals, and what is required is this Azure 150 monthly credit. Okay, now if you activate that, I would be clear. If you activate that, it will get to a step. I already have. Let me see what the page brings if I try to click activate. But if you click on activate, you would be required. Okay, I already have that. So you can't activate this benefit. Okay, so I've done that already. It will take you to that point where you have to, sign up your details and all. And it will get to that point where you say enter your credit card information. Okay. I'm letting it clear to every one of us that as at that point, you will be charged $1 equivalent from your local currency. Okay, and at the end of 1 month one can cancel this trial plan and your money will be refunded. I understand that some of us may not want to take the risk, but I'm making it explicit so that we know what is involved, and we can avoid let me use the slang, stories that touch, to say, oh, it was my instructor from textile I was tossing. Now I'm making it clear to us to understand what this entails. I hope.
No, but $1. I'm sure the cost what we're learning already is already worth more than $1. So
All right,
I'm
so
sure we'll
that's
survive.
okay. So
The
that's
training alone is already worth more than $1.
okay. So that's an individual decision, and I think I quite agree with you from that standpoint. So that's about that. In here. So once you have that, this is the page we have. And the interesting thing about the Visual Studio is there are other things besides, the Azure that one can learn from. For instance, we have M365. I know we are not doing M365. I'm just saying this entire Visual Studio subscription, you can activate that of M365. You can activate for Power BI, Visual Studio, you have the developer community, all of these interesting benefits available to you. Now, my option is even great. For some of you, you might even see Pluralsight, which is also available for a month, where you can watch videos, have access to learning for a month. So it depends on the environment. I've utilized mine. That's why the option, is no longer there for me, because I've gone ahead to utilize mine. So that's around this environment. Now back to what I was trying to, demonstrate to us. I was trying to demonstrate to us to see what the Azure portal looks like. And I said to log into the Azure portal, I'll also put it in the meeting chat. You have to go to portal azure.com. That's the URL. So I think there's a question here. It's the same link to okay. Thanks for helping me to answer that, please. All right, so portal.azure.com, it will ask you to enter your username. That's the user account. Now, this user account you're entering is that same user account you used in activating the Azure. That's for those of us maybe who has taken a step further to activate from my Visual Studio subscription. Now, that is the account. That Microsoft account is the account you would use. Now, it's a request for password. Now, whatever password you have provided at the point of sign up, that's the same password that you will be using. Okay, so once you provide the credentials, it will let you sign into the Azure portal. Now, for my own case, this particular account, there's MFA on it, multi-factor authentication. I don't mean to, make us confused. For you, once you enter username and password, it will take you directly to the page of the Azure portal. Now, for me, I've put security measures in place, which is the MFA. Now, MFA, which we refer to as multi-factor authentication, is more or less that second layer security. Or let me call it in a simple way to say it's a two-factor authentication, which means the one factor is me providing my password, then the two-factor is the second layer. And this second layer, it could be any option. It could be me either trying to get OTP, that's SMS, that I provide the code, or it could be me receiving a call, or it could be me using authenticator or using biometrics. So I'm not going to go into details of MFA because that's not, I think it's some part of what we'll talk about as we move on in the training, but it's just to mention so that when you are referring or rewatching this recording, you don't get confused with what your environment gives to you. So that's one. So for you, it's not going to require you for MFA. Um, Permit me to quickly get the approval done from my phone. Okay, so once you've been able to log in successfully, that is provide username, password and all, it brings you to a landing page. So that landing page is home. Again, for you, because it's a new environment, you wouldn't see any resources that is being used already. These are just resources that I have spinned up over time. So this is what the Azure portal look like. You would see the blue ribbon where you can see the Microsoft Azure, should I say header. Then you have your search bar. Now this search bar is where you can quickly, search for resources or services, anything whatsoever regarding Azure. So it's faster. So and alternative for this is either going to all services. So all services will list out for us the category and the things we are trying to do. So from the category, we have the compute category, and the question is, what are we trying to do? Do we want to create a VM? Do we want to create a VM classic? Do we want to create function app, or do we want to create Kubernetes, or do we want to create container instance? Depending, this is what the different compute services that we can create. Now, if it's around networking, these are the services we can create for networking. Okay, if it's storage, we have all the different services that we can create for storage, depending on what we intend doing. These are the different services we equally have for web. Are we trying to create an app service? Are we trying to create maybe an app service plan, depending on what the business requirement is. These are the different categories which help categorize the different services within Azure. But the search bar here is faster. So if so the search bar is usually for if you know the exact thing you are trying
Hello,
to. Yes, we can hear you.
hello. Hey, Jago, faster.
Please kindly mute your mic. There's someone whose mic is not muted. We would appreciate if you could mute your mic, please. Thank you. All right, so I was explaining and I said the search bar is faster and better if you know that particular service that
Hello.
you're looking for and you're trying to create. Okay, that way it's
Hello.
faster for you to search the
Hello.
service. Please, part of our housekeeping is if you're not asking question or contributing, kindly mute your mic, please. That way, we don't distract others on the call. Thank you. Okay, so for instance, if I want to go ahead to create a VM, I can type virtual machines, and once I click, it takes me to the virtual machine page where I can click create. Now, I already have virtual machines created in my portal. Now, if I go to all services, okay, and I go to, let's say, compute, for instance, I click virtual machines, the same thing, it will take me to this same virtual machine page. So I'm trying to let us know that those are the options that we have. Now, for those of us that will be doing this for the first time, okay, you might have to go through all services or use the search bar to be specific on what you're trying to create. If not, some of the other services that are usually listed under favorites, but it doesn't come out automatically. Okay, you must have search and specify it to be favorite. Then it should be listed under this menu for the favorite header, such that next time you sign in, you don't have to either use the search bar or go through all services. You can just scroll the bar and look for VM. So for instance, this is virtual machine here. Click and it still brings me to the virtual machine page. So take for instance, let's say it is app service. App service. So I can go ahead to click app service. So this is app service plan. So you can be careful because it depends. There's app service plan and there's app service itself. So depending on what you're trying to do, you have to look at. So this is app service. So you can create an app service. Now, if I don't want to use the search, I can either go to all services, or if I have done that before and make it favorite, I would find that under the menu app service. So for instance, I have it in here, app service. So it will equally take me to the same landing page. So this is us just trying to explore the portal. Now, also, we have, on this ribbon, besides the search bar, we have the Cloud Shell. We're going to talk about Cloud Shell as we move on in this training. We have, the directories and subscription. So if you click on this directory and subscription, it will show us, the different directories and subscription you have within your account. So currently, this is saying I'm using the tosword.gad domain. However, we have other domain like sharedesigns.tk, Tosword Media. So I can switch and make any of these directory to be the current one. So that depends on what I'm trying to achieve. So take for instance, I can switch to this particular directory name, which is the Unshared Designs, or I can even add another domain, but I'm not going to go too fast. I'll just take it as it is. Please, can someone confirm if you can hear me? I think someone is putting in the chat that it cannot hear me. Can you please confirm if you can hear me?
I can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Yes.
All right,
I can hear
thank
you.
you. So I would say, Aderoju, please could you, go ahead, sign out and sign back in to join us again
Yeah,
to see if you
I
get
can
the
hear
audio.
you.
Oh, okay, great. That's good to know. Thank you. So that's for the directory. Then we also have the notification bar. So for those of us that would be doing this for the first time using the Visual Studio, or not just sign up for the first time, you would also see the notification of the credit remaining. Okay, so for instance, the first time you will get $150 credit, and you would see that in the notification using this when you click on this notification icon. This is where we have the settings equally showing us that of the directory, the help. If you require help, maybe this help will usually uh, redirect you depending on what you click. Whether you want to ask the Azure community for a question, you have, an issue that you want the community to help provide answer, or you want to view your a billing frequently asked question, or explore the Azure documentation to, read. You want to know what is new about Azure. You want to know the update. You want to be able to understand the privacy statement or find an Azure expert regarding that's your organization trying to get a partner, find an Azure freelancer and all of those things. So you can always get that, from this page. And also, if you want to maybe reach out to Microsoft support engineer, and I think one of us on the call at the beginning was saying, um, was support engineer or something, I can't remember. So you can use this help.support such that the request would go to Microsoft. So in a way, the terminology is, or should I say the term is, you're raising a ticket to Microsoft. That means you're opening a support ticket, or you're escalating whatever issue it is to Microsoft support such that an engineer can reach out and troubleshoot the issue with you until it gets resolved. So you can have that. Yeah. Now this icon is if you need or to provide Microsoft with feedback, which Microsoft really would love. Microsoft encourage its customers, to always provide feedback, because it's the feedback that they put together in improving all of these services. So depending on what you're about to, maybe you want to tell Microsoft, the portal, a lot of changes are being made and all of it, put either your satisfaction or dissatisfaction, or depending on what it is, you can do that here. Now this is the profile icon that shows you, your name, the account, and you can switch directory. So that's a little about this what's it called, the Azure portal. So again, there's something here, the dashboard. Now this dashboard, you can customize your dashboard. Okay, you can create a new dashboard such that you customize what are those things, and whenever you click, let it take you to your dashboard rather than the home page. So you can make the dashboard your landing page rather than the home page, your landing page. So all of this, as we move on, we would, see how we can get to that. So what we are doing currently is just for me to use my environment as demo to, go ahead to explore this portal. So this is what we refer to as our Azure portal, and this is a tool that we can use for either creation of resources or management of resources or governance of some of these resources in our environment. So we do all that in here, and that's about the Azure portal. So we're able to connect to this portal. We're able to explore the home screen, which I showed us, and we're able to find all services to see all the different services based on categories that are available. So we have successfully done that. I don't know if we have any question, please, before I move on to the next slide to talk about management group. Any question? Okay, in the absence of no question, let's continue then. Okay, so let's talk about management group, and basically what is this management group? Now for management group, it's if let's take for instance, your organization has different subscription, just the way we are trying to get the Azure subscription. Some organization can have more than one. Okay, they can have different subscription within their environment for different things. Okay, so the way the subscriptions are being managed, okay, they are, or should I say, they are being organized. So with management group, it will give organization, or it will provide them with different levels of scope that is above their subscription, and that way you can get to organize your subscription into different containers, and that is exactly what we refer to as management groups. So if you see the diagram on the screen right now, here is letting us know we have different subscription, and those different subscription are being managed, if I can use that word, or they are being organized to be together under one management group. Okay, so usually all our subscription that we have that is within the management group will inherit conditions. So if we apply a condition to this management group, all of this subscription and whatever is within it is going to inherit that. So in a way, this there's an hierarchy. That's what I'm trying to point out to us. There's an hierarchy of this management group and subscription, and with that you can use it to build a flexible structure of to organize your resources. Okay, so we can organize it to say, okay, this is a particular subscription. Under that subscription, I have different resource group. Under a particular resource group, I have different resources. So it's been categorizing it, and you can have more than one what's it called subscription. You can have two, you can have three, depending on the way your organization is set out and what they have in place. So you can have, the bottom line is you can have more than one subscription. Now in a situation whereby maybe in your organization you guys usually have many employees, and there's many users in your organization and many applications. For instance, if all these employees have the Azure subscription, and based on the fact that they have Azure subscription, all of them can be creating Azure resource. Probably they have that free will that at any point in time, because I have the Azure subscription, I can create Azure resource. Before you know it, you will realize that you won't be able to control users in your environment anymore. You won't be able to control what people are doing. You won't be able to track who is creating what. Like let's take for instance all of us on this call. Let me see what's our total number currently. Trying to get our total number on the call. So let's say all of us on this call currently, we are in the same organization. Because we're in the same organization, we have that free will, to create any resource whatsoever, depending on the category and depending on what we are trying to achieve. Now, you will soon realize that people would take that liberty to create anything. And as an admin, you won't be able to control it. It will be so difficult to control. So for that reason is why we have different level of management scope. Currently we have actually 4 levels of this management scope. Again, if there's anything to take home, this level is just to help us to organize, secure, and manage, and even track costs, basically depending on organization. I'm sorry, you would hear me from time to time mention organization. So please kindly flow with me. But if you are confused or you need clarity, feel free to ask question, either drop it on meeting chat or call my attention to get clarification on the go. So these are the levels that we have in form of scope. The management group is usually the first, and I've told us the fact that the management group is usually the top in hierarchy, just like we can see from this diagram. All the subscription within the management group automatically inherit their condition from this management group. So all the subscription here, we can see that it's under the management group. So what it means is automatically it will inherit the condition or whatever settings you decide to apply at the management group level. It's different layers now. So the management group can act like, should I say, a main container, for instance, for all the subscription within your organization. That's the idea of management group. So let's, I don't know if we have any question before we move on to the next lesson. Any question, please? Any question? Okay, so let me illustrate something to us quickly. 1 minute. In the absence of no question, I'll just continue. Then probably at the end, I would do a revision and just mention some of those things that we might need clarity on. So let's move on to core Azure workload products. And here we would, at the end of this, we would understand, what is this, the benefit and usage of virtual machine, the app service, container instance, virtual network, VPN, container storage, Cosmo DB, and all of those things. We'll be understanding that in this, what's it called, Azure workload. So here we'll start with compute services. And what is this compute services? Usually an Azure compute provides us with our online processing time as well as hosting environment for running application in the cloud. And you can run this application in the cloud via virtual machine. Okay, so those are something that you can refer to as compute services. Now, compute, just like we have here, you can see it provides that resources like disk, processor, memory, networking, and even other operating system. And that's why I've defined it for us as that online processing time as well as hosting environment for running our application. Okay, so we equally have app service as well. And for app service, we can liken that to another resource. For app service, for instance, we can use this app service to create app services within our environment. Now, the same thing, we have container instance, Kubernetes, and the Azure Virtual Desktop. Now, each of these, we are going to take a deep dive to understanding each of these things. So I'll go ahead to start with the VM, which is the Azure Virtual Machine. Now, what is Azure VM basically? And our Azure VM is just an emulation of that physical machine that we have. So for instance, you have your laptop or your desktop. I'm sure you know that once you sign in, that's turn on your what's it called, your laptop. Usually you go through you see your desktop, you see your different applications on your desktop, you see your documents and all of those things. Now, the same way the virtual machine gives you that whole package of your system. The only thing is now that it's like how will I put it, it's the logical version, or should I say the virtualization. So what I'm trying to look for a very simple word that will help us to understand. So imagine looking at a mirror. Yourself, your own person, which is real, is before you, you can touch and know. Now you see a reflection of you in the mirror. Okay. If I'm able to, paint that instance clearly to us. That's similarly how you can view VM. You have the computer and you see the instance of that your PC. You can also have that within the VM. So let me show you an example from here so that we can have that pictorial view of what I am referring to for this VM. So imagine this is my VM. What is it called? Don't worry, I have to show us how to create the VM. But this, let me just navigate to one of the VM. So this is one of my VM, and I can go ahead to connect. So first of all, I need to start this VM to be up and running. So what I'm trying to help us understand is it's just like saying you have another system on your system. That's the idea of what this VM posed to us. So that's VM. And of course the VM, just like you can get your configuration, when you're buying a laptop or you're buying your desktop, you're always after the configuration of what is the size of my RAM, what is the processor speed, what is the same way you can get all of this configuration for your VM. So we can say you have the image, you can get image in terms of operating system. If the operating system is maybe what's it called? Your operating system can either be Windows operating system or Linux, or maybe even have a Windows Server operating system. And also that is something you can call it operating system or image. Okay, and all of this you will get. The system configuration is something you can equally get, and of course our virtual machine is here suffering. Remember we talked about infrastructure as a service. I don't know if uh, some of us are still able to remember that, where we talked about the infrastructure as a service. And with this, you can always create like a computer. Let me use that word, computer in the cloud. Okay, and that way you have a form of virtualized environment, and you can use it in any way, the same way you can use your normal computer, the same way you can use this virtualized environment. Now this can be server, this can be client, depending on what you intend to create. So if there's anything we are going to take home from this particular slide, is the fact that the same way we can have our physical computer that we can touch, maybe our laptop that we can carry about with us, and all, we can equally customize all of those kind of software to be running on our VM. Okay, so we can customize, the configuration, and I already said that when I was talking about the RAMs, the disk size, and all of it. So that's about VM. But one thing that is important here is that you will still have to remember, is infrastructure as a service. You still have to update, you still have to maintain all the softwares that are running on the system, on this VM, on your own. You will still have to maintain that physical hardware where you run your VM. You will still have to do that on your own. So you can use the VM to say maybe you want to do testing and development. That's a way you can use the VM, because it just gives you that easy way to create a particular machine with different OS as well as application configuration, however you need to do that. And once you are done, if you don't need them for test anymore, you can delete them. You can use it to run your applications on the cloud. You can use it to extend your data center to the cloud. You can use it even if there's a disaster, you can use it for your disaster recovery in a way. And all of this you have for VM. Now, when it comes to VM, you can always scale your VM in Azure. Okay, I'll be careful not to go, too deep, but there are some things I just feel we need to understand and mention to us. So that's about that. Over time, we're still going to draw more on VM and try to understand different virtual machine skill set and all of those. So for now, I'll just stop there and move on to the next. So here is, we'll create a virtual machine and connect to virtual machine. So I can do that quickly, to simulate that, show us as a demo rather than using an already existing one. Let me get back to the home page. Now this is my home page, and I can come here to say, oh, create a resource. If I click on create a resource, it will ask me what resource do I want to create. I can come to compute and I can click on virtual machines. That's one way. From home, I can decide, oh, I'll go through the search bar. I can type virtual machines, but if you have already searched for it before, you would see your recent services, virtual machines. That's 2. 3, I can decide, oh, because I don't have idea or how to go, I want to go through all services, click on compute, and from compute, I click on virtual machines. Either way, it will take you to the virtual machine landing page. If you're doing this for the first time, because I understand some of us are here that have, that basic knowledge and we have, get our hands on this before. But for most of us that are new, okay, once you navigate to the VM, you click on create. Now, create, you will see start with the preset configuration and virtual machine. Now, this preset configuration is more likely like providing you with templates. But now we want to create from the scratch. So we'll click create virtual machine. Now, once you click that, it gives us a blade where we can create this virtual machine. Now, there's always it will always request you for a subscription. This my subscription right now is the Visual Studio. Remember my Visual Studio that I talked to you about? When I activated it, that was the subscription I got. Okay, and that's the subscription I have. So I can click this Visual Studio. So you just have to select one. Now, resource group. What is a resource group? We talked about what a resource group was in our previous learning, and I told us, if we can remember, that the resource group is that logical container for our resources, where we deploy no for is a logical container where we deploy Azure resources. Okay, so that's what this is. It's a container, nothing more. You can use it to organize or put all of your resources in one place such that you're able to manage all these resources together. So that's resource group. It's just that very simple way of having a logical collection of all your resources. Okay, so here I don't want to use existing one. For the purpose of our learning, we can click create new. So give your resource group a name. It's usually advisable that you give your resource group a name based on the project or what you're trying to achieve or the kind of resources. So some people might have create the resource group to name it after a project that they want to set up. Okay, and hold. So I can decide, okay, let me name this. We're doing textiles. I can call it textiles. Now, it's not compulsory, but usually I recommend that you end this with either you type it in full resource group or you can use the abbreviation RG to represent resource group. That way, it will help you to understand based on the name which one is a resource group and which one is a resource. Okay, that's just an idea, especially if we're doing the test environment. So for major organizations and all that go into production, they would have their own naming convention based on policy. Organizations have their different styles that they use, but for us, because this is a test, and for us to familiarize ourselves with the environment and the things we are doing, I would recommend that you put the RG just to notify you to say this is a resource group, so we can click OK. Now, once we've created this resource group, it's now the next details is asking us about the virtual machine name. Okay, now the virtual machine name depends on what you are doing in your environment. You may be creating a VM for the purpose of using it for your domain controller in your organization. You may be creating a VM for the purpose of using it for maybe a particular server. It depends on what you're trying to use the VM for. But for this learning, because we're just starting out afresh, I would recommend that you maintain a similar name that you give the resource group, and don't forget this is just for test environment. So I can still maintain the text stylers, but this time around I write VM. So that way I'm able to know, okay, which is my VM and which is my resource group. Okay. And if I'm going to be creating subsequent thing, I'll just maintain the same name and I'll be adding the abbreviation of the resource. So that way I can house all my different resources under the resource group. And I know that whatever this is around textilers, especially for our test purpose. So that's the VM name. Now we have different region. Remember what we said about region in our last learning, that we said region is that geographical area that we can have more than one data center. Okay, I don't know if I want to believe we remember that. So these are different VMs that are available to us. Now some organizations choose VM, or it's usually a good best practice to choose the VM that is closest to you. Okay, and some organization can decide to choose VM based on where their customer is. So let's assume I'm creating a VM so that I can still use with my app service. And when I create my app service, I'm going to be having a website, and the people that would majorly be, navigating through my website or exploring or accessing this website are from a particular region, not even a region in Nigeria. Just saying, okay, it would be better or advisable to choose the region that is closest to your customer. I don't know if you're understanding, please. So that's one thing. So we have different regions in here. And I think there was a question last week where someone said, do we have in Africa? Yes, we do have in South Africa. We do have I think South Africa right now. We don't have a data center in Nigeria, so you wouldn't see Nigeria on the list. But these are all the different regions that we have. So I think I'll just maintain the East US. I think I prefer the West US somehow. So I can just use West US. Okay. And oh, now this I am selecting for the purpose of, our practice test environment. Okay. So, but for you, you can also choose, any of these region. Now, another thing when it comes to region is the region you select affects the pricing of your size. And I'll explain that when I go further. So now that we've selected the region, the next thing is the availability option. Now for here, of course, there are no infrastructure redundancy required, which means because it's a test environment, I don't need any redundancy. I don't need that failover to say if anything happens to my VM, I need another that would be available for me. I don't need that because it's just a test environment. But if not, you can decide to take an availability set. Remember what we said an availability set is. I don't know if you we talked about it, I think, was it last week? Yes, when I said the availability set gives us the logical grouping where we can isolate our virtual machine resources from each other. So what Azure used to do is that they make sure that our VM that we place in the availability set would run across different physical servers, different compute racks, different storage units, just like a standalone. And the idea about the availability set is if any failure happens, the failure could be maybe as a result of hardware or maybe failure as a result of software. If any failure happens, it will just impact the particular, should I say server or should I say rack? It will affect that one, and it will not affect the overall solution, which means others will be available. The idea is just like say, do not put your eggs in one basket. If that basket, anything happens to that basket, it means all your eggs are gone. That's the idea in a layman English. Okay, so we are not that's the, also you can relate that with the availability set, such that if failure occurs at one portion of rack, you have others that are up and running for you within the same availability sets. Okay, so that's the example of that. And you can decide that, but I wouldn't choose availability sets, because it's just a test environment. Okay, so I'll leave it as there's no infrastructure redundancy required, but most organization, depending on what they're doing, most organization would not go for this option. Everyone wants to guide their environment and ensure that services are up and running at all times. There's availability, and also organization would opt in for this maybe availability set option, or availability zone, depending. But again, making emphasis, in case you're going to be referring to this video again, this is a test environment and there's no need for availability set. Now, the image, remember what I said to us about image. Image is like you selecting an operating system. So you can see different operating system in here. We can see servers, we can see, okay, let me even click view all images so that you have a clearer picture of what I meant. So these are different images. Windows Server image, Red Hat, you have Debian, you have Ubuntu, depending on what you want to use that VM for. You have the CentOS, you have, look at the different operating system. And that's why with Azure, it's not only for system administrator, even developers can get to use Azure. Developers that works with, uh, code and applications within our environment, they can get to use this as well. So depending on what operating system that you want to select, you can go. For me, I'll just choose server rather than the client. The client is more or less like, say, okay, we want to have Windows 10 or Windows 8, or maybe even Windows 11 if that is currently available. But here is where we can have that in place. So if we click here, it gives us more options on what we can choose. You can see we have the Windows Server 2022 data center. We have Windows Server 20. Now we have different generation, and that's something that probably we'll talk about much later in terms of this different generation. So we have all these different generation of our um, VM. Okay, so depending, you can choose maybe generation 1 or generation 2 or any of this. So you can see the list here. So different organizations have, please don't be overwhelmed. Don't be overwhelmed, please. It's just letting you know that Azure provides a solution for whatever you intend to do on Azure. Microsoft has that listed for us. Okay, but right now I think we can just maintain a simple Windows Server 2016. We can even can stay put with 2016 or 2019 data center, or whichever one. I'll just select at random. Now, this different data center, another thing I would like us to note is that the data center you select shows your price or determines the cost of your VM besides the region. So for instance, let's assume you are going for Windows Server 2022. Trust me, the price would be, more than like that of 2019 or 2016. So that's why preferably I would always go for something lower, especially because it's just a test environment. So I would prefer to go for Windows Server 2016 data center. Again, this is just because it's a test. If it's something that our organization requires for a specific purpose and all, we should go based on the requirement. But for this test, I just maintain something lower, which is 2016 and all. Now, the Azure Spot instance, this is requesting, I'm clicking on it. We don't need it, just so that we can see other options. Okay, if we want to have the eviction type or eviction policy, but right now that does not apply to us. We'll understand what this means as we go on. I don't want to overwhelm us with too many information. So we have size. Don't forget, we're still trying to create VM. size. Now, if I click on see all sizes, it gives you idea of the different configuration that you could get. So you will see configuration. We have different series. We have the D series, the B series, and the good thing here is you have, a description about what these different series are for. So for instance, the D series are usually the latest generation D family and is recommended for if you need a VM for general purpose. Now the B series is ideal for workload that do not require maybe continuous full CPU performance. So if you have, such workload that does not require any full performance, then B series is fine. And I think I would like to go for B series for test environment, just letting us know. So we have the A series, best suited for entry level workload if you're going to be doing development and test, maybe for people like us on this call. And with the different series, it just shows, the cost, because the cost varies based on these different series. We have the E series, which is for high memory need. If you need very high memory, then E series is your best. F series, if you want twice the performance boot for your vector processing workload. H series, which is quite on the high side in terms of price, and I'll show us if we have need high performance. Then we have the L series, and you can see all the families in here, different series. Now let's take a look at this. Our D2. Now another thing you will consider when selecting your disk is the CPU, the RAM, the temporary storage, and the disk type. So for instance, if I'm going for the D series, I would rather go for um, something with 8 gig RAM, having a 16 gig memory, and ensuring that the premium disk is supported. Now, if you look at the cost in here, it will cost me about $85.41. Okay. Now, if I decide, remember I said I would prefer the B series. Now, if I decide to go for B series, maybe B2MS, for instance, it will also offer me 2 CPU. I'll get 8 gig RAM, 4 data disks, just like the D2S V3. Then, although the max IOPS is lower, but I will still get similar configuration and cheaper price. Remember, the B series is usually for if I don't need continuous full CPU performance, which means because this is a test environment, I just go for something less that I do not have to pay much. So I think I'm fine with two, but organization, again, depending on what they want to do, they go for bigger size. There's always a specification or there's a need, and you can get that. So I'll just click on B2MS, this series, based on the costing. Now, this you can now have the administrator account, which means what is that username that you always use to sign in to your VM. Preferably, I would say, this is not me saying best practice, it's just personally recommending, because it's a test environment, maintain the same virtual machine name as your VM name. That way you do not get to forget about the VM. I don't know if that's clear. Not necessarily saying is a best practice. It's just for us, because we are starting out for the first time, we're just familiarizing ourselves with this. It's necessary to, go ahead to maintain the same virtual machine name as your username. Then go ahead to provide password. Now there's a password policy based on the length. You have alphanumeric and all. So I'll go ahead to set my password. So if there's an issue, it will not check. You won't see the check symbol. So that's letting you know that probably it's not well typed. So see, on purpose, I stopped. It said password confirm must match. So you have to be careful to ensure that the same password you supplied is what you have for your confirmation. And if it's correct, you see the check sign. If not, of course, it will throw us an error. So whatever, this is what you always use to sign in or log into our VM. Now for public inbound parts, this has to do with NSG. NSG, which we will talk about as we move on. Of course, this is still module 2. We have other modules to go. Our NSG is Network Security Group. Okay, and this network security group is just a way we use it to, you filter our connection. If it's does I don't know, I'm trying to use words that we would understand. So the NSG is it gives us the ability to manage rules. Okay, and we can use that rule to define whether we would have network traffic, or maybe we should permit a network traffic through our network, or we should deny traffic. So that's what this NSG rule is about. So in essence, our NSG would allow admins within our organization, which in this instance, everyone on this call is an admin, trying to learn it. So an admin like you will be able to easily organize, you'll be able to filter and route different types of network within this Azure space. So here, if for the public inbound, we have different ports. We have the HTTP, HTTPS, SSH. Now, what we are trying to say is we want to open this port to allow traffic. So basically, we would be using the RDP to connect. But should in case you prefer to use the secure shell, or you want to be able to connect your VM via HTTP or the HTTPS, what you are specifying right now, just like I'm doing, is we are opening the ports. So we are making the ports open. And usually I prefer to just stay within SSH and RDP. But for the purpose of this learning, we can keep all these ports open. Now it will give us a note letting us know that this is only recommended for testing, because it's not safe to have all your ports just opened. But because it's testing, that's what we're doing right now, then it's fine. We'll go ahead to select all the ports and ensuring that we have the public inbound port selected. Now, based on organization, this licensing, in case we already have an existing Windows Server license, and of course, you wouldn't want to do away with it just because we are moving to the cloud. Okay, we can go ahead to select it and utilize the licenses that we already have, but we don't have. Then there's no need. But I'm just letting us know that should in case our organization have, for those of us that would get the chance to work with organization later on, when they have an hold, they would apply it so that it can reduce their cost for them. So we can click next. And here is just, we are not going to make changes. I just want us to see the different tabs. You can see the OS disk type. So we have the premium SSD, standard SSD, HDD. Now HDD is the hard disk, which usually would give us storage over speed. That's the summary of how I can help us understand. Then the standard SSD, this of course is even listed there for best for web servers. It gives us a speed. Now the premium SSD, which is best for production, would give us like a balance. I'm just trying to give us an idea to help us understand that balance of both, storage space as well as speed. So I'll just maintain the premium SSD. And for the encryption type, let me just drop down. And also we have encryption. When we say encryption, is a security way for our data. So we can always encrypt data that is at rest and data that is in transit. Now, when data is at rest, the example is this VM. When you have data that will be stored in a disk, those are data at rest. So we want to be able to encrypt such data that we would have, going forward. And you can have encryption in transit. Those are data that will be moving from one location to another. So it's fine to go with the default, which is that encryption at rest with the platform managed key. Now there's a customer key, a managed key, there's a platform key. I'm sorry, I won't confuse us right now, but this right now, let's just use the platform managed key, which is based on the default. We have the enable ultra disk compatibility. We are not making any changes. So please note, if you're going to be doing this on your own and referring to this video, there is no need to enable that. Now, some organization may have an existing disk that they want to attach to the VM. So they can always attach an existing disk, and you can even go ahead to attach a new disk if the one you specified at the beginning of the configuration you think is not going to be enough. You can have that option of attaching. Now, let's move to networking. So for networking, again, we are not modifying changes. The idea is just for us to understand what each tab does. Now for networking, automatically it created for me the VNet for my resource group. Then there's a subnet by default as well. It's also created for me a public IP. Now the network interface card is basic. We're not modifying that changes. Then the public inbound part, which we you know configured at the basic, is to allow ports, and we ensured all the ports are opening. Now, in case we need a load balancer for the VM, which we will still talk about load balancer, is just to help us, to distribute traffic, and we would understand that more as we move on. So we don't need a load balancer or at the moment, and so we'll leave all of this as the default. The next tab here is management, and for management, you can see enable with managed storage accounts, which is recommended. Now, in case you have your own custom account, you can go ahead to enable with your custom account, or you even disable this totally, but it's recommended that you enable this with the managed storage account. Now, we have system assigned managed identity. Is a type, it's an identity type. That's the managed identity. So for the managed identity, we have the user user managed identity, and you have the um, you know what's it called? This system assigned, user assigned, and system assigned. Those are the managed identity that we have. Uh, there's a lot to learn around Azure, okay? But don't, please, I would encourage us, let's not get overwhelmed with all of this, okay? It's just, let's take it as simply as, it is, and as we move on, we can build on the basic that we are understanding. But in essence, the managed identity, like I said, provides us with just what the system assigned and the user assigned. So that's around that. Now let's move on. We can see here enable auto shutdown. I would strongly recommend that we put this in place. Now, this will help shut down our VM whenever we are not using it. Okay, so we can go ahead. For instance, it's showing me that by 7 p.m., let's be sure, I would even modify it to 5. So by 5, of course, our own time zone is UTC plus 1, which means I can decide to put UTC plus 1 so that I'm specific in my choosing UTC plus 1. This is our time zone. I can even maintain the West African time zone, but then sometimes we use UTC plus 1. So here, it will, once it's 5 p.m., regardless of if I forget to shut down and all, it will help automatically shut down. Now it can even post me a notification before it shut down, and I can decide, oh, the notification I don't want because it can be disturbing me. But in case you need that notification, you can provide email address where you will get the notification whenever your VM is about to shut down. So I'll just leave it that way. I don't want the notification. Now, in case you want to enable backup, you have the option for that. In case you want to enable for disaster recovery, you have the option for that. For patch orchestration, we leave it as the automatic. We are not modifying anything further. We don't need a backup. This is a test environment. Neither do we need any disaster recovery because it's not a production VM. So we can go on to next. And the next here is just to give us advanced. And of course, we are not making any changes in here. So you can decide to have a configuration file or put a script in place, or have a placement group that you want. So right now we have none of these available. But for placement group, basically it's just that having that to group your Azure resources that will be in the same region. That's what the placement group is about. So we're not modifying any changes here, but you can see the tab to, for more options. Now, next here is tags. And for tags, we utilize tags to, it's just like saying resource tag. Okay, and we apply this resource tag to help us logically organize our resources by the category. Okay, that's the essence of tag. So our tag usually will consist of the name and the value, just like we can see here. So we can decide to apply tag based on maybe the name to be based on our environment, if it's a test environment or if it's a production environment. And whenever we create our tag, we can associate it with the resource, just like this VM that we have here. So this is a test environment, one of I'm not going to be creating a tag. Now, once we are done, we can go to next, where it will review and create for us. So here you have the option to see the configuration that you have made. So it will let you know if the configuration pass. Now, if you see validation pass, it means everything you have put in place is fine. If you see validation failed, let's not panic. All we have to do is revisit data, because it will specify to us where we made the mistake. The mistake could be as a result of password. Maybe the password does not comply with the policy. You may have to change the password. It could be based on a name. It could be something that we missed out, and that's why the validation failed. So let's not panic. Just go ahead to review it, and it's only once the validation pass that we can create our VM. So we click on create button. Now, sometimes it takes a little while for this VM to be deployed. Either way, you would see this creation. So from our notification icon, you would, let me click on it. It would specify to us those things that is ongoing, in terms of status, that the VM is deploying, is in progress, it has completed, and all of those stuff. We will see that in there. So right now, deployment is in progress, and while it's in progress, let's move on to the next slide. Any question, please? I know I've said a lot, but I don't mean to overwhelm us with the information. They're just the basic things that we need to understand. Okay, so I don't know if you have any question for that while we move on to app service. So we're trying to take a look at each of these core Azure workloads. Okay, that's what we are doing. We started with the VM, and the next year is Azure App Service. Okay, so basically, what do we use this app service to do? Don't worry, I'm going to check again once it's as completed. It's still in progress. Once it's completed, I'll bring up this page again. Now, for app service, just like the what's it called, VM is for part of the EAS offering. App service, I would say, is under the PaaS offering. That's the platform as a service. And basically, you can use the app service to focus on websites, as well as if you want to build maybe things around API logic. And with that, remember, for our PaaS offering, the infrastructure is being handled while we go ahead to focus on our application that we put on it. So in a way, or to describe to us, the app service actually enables us to build and host our web apps, or maybe our background jobs. It could even be a mobile backend, or any of the APIs, maybe a RESTful API in our programming language, any programming language of our choice, without us worrying about the how we are going to manage the infrastructure. Okay, that's what this app service is all about. Now, the app service basically supports whether it's Windows operating system or Linux operating system, and these are something that we can even automate the development from GitHub. Okay, so this is the aspect for programmers and those of us that would be interested in delving into the development aspects of the Azure space. That this is for you, and of course, the Azure App Service has its own cost, and you can pay for the Azure compute resources that your app is using while it's processing maybe the request based on the app service plan. So what I'm saying in essence is for every app service, there's also always the app service plan that you need to choose. And what does this app service plan entails? It just determines how much hardware that we want to devote to the host in a way. So we can decide maybe we want to use a dedicated hardware or want to have the shared hardware, and or we want to have memory reserved for it and all of those. So as we move on, we'll look at the different app service plan that we have within Azure. But here, just please, our take home, if there's anything we would gain from this particular slide, is to understand that our app service enables us to build and host web apps, background job. Let me just say the different app services type. Like another app service type is web apps, API apps, mobile apps, web job. There are different, common app service types that we have, and we'll take a look at each of these as we move on. So this is just us introducing the different resources within Azure that we have. So there's still that part, I think it's module 5, if I'm not mistaken, where we'll do a little bit deep dive on each of these core services that we are introducing right now. Okay, so here we can create app service, and I would quickly show us briefly how we can do that. So let's get back to our environment to see if we have completely deployed our VM. So here you can see that your deployment is complete. If I click on go to resource, it will show me that I have my Textiles VM created for me. Now, how do I connect to this VM? Remember, we selected the ports that should be open for connection. So we can either decide let's use RDP or SSH or Azure Bastion. Now, this Azure Bastion, which I know we are still going to talk about, as we move on, it helps us. The way Azure Bastion works is it gives us the traditional method of this RDP SSH usually would expose our ports to the internet. And that was why there was a warning letting us know that what the ports we have opened is better for just test environment, because the idea is it opens all your ports to the internet. But with Azure Bastion, it gives us that secured and seamless connectivity for our VM, okay, such that we can directly connect from this Azure portal using the transport layer security. Okay, that's the idea of this. But let me take us through the traditional way, and we can now differentiate that with version. So I'll click on RDP, which is the remote desktop protocol. Okay, now once I click on this, I'm required to download the RDP file. Okay, and I can open this RDP file. So I get an icon that looks like this, and I can click on connect. So with this, the expectation is to provide my username and password. I'll go to more choices so that I can use a different account. So I can go ahead to click different accounts. What's the name of our username? Remember I said let's maintain the same VM name. Now this is to those of us that might have forgotten, okay, what did I use? This is the same VM name, so we can go ahead to type test textilers, textilers VM, then I provide the password. Okay, then so I would see something like this letting me know, okay, identify this is not verified and all of it. It's fine. So just click on yes. And once you click on yes, it will show you that the remote desktop is connecting. And once the connection comes up, this is the environment that you see. 1 minute, this is coming up. Okay, so can we see that this VM looks like our usual or same computer that we are familiar with? So, but then don't forget that this, when I specified my image, I did not choose the client. Rather, I chose a server. So, for server, it will give me the server manager and all of it. But then it's just like saying I have, the logical representation of my physical computer. So, which means I have a computer space or in my computer, if that would make sense. So this is what the VM looks like. I can do anything within here depending on the intent of this VM. So I can have all my work, all my, everything. So which means rather than thinking, oh, there's a need for me to have different VMs. So let's take, for instance, how do I put it now? Maybe you have your personal computer, and for your personal computer, there are things you do on the side, maybe based on your work, or then you can just have that set aside in a VM, just saying. So this is what the VM looks like. Okay, now if I decide to go back to VM virtual machine page, you will see that it is listed as part of the virtual machine I have created, Textilers. Okay, so I have that in place for me right now. Don't mind me, I prefer the B2MS series because they are cheaper. That's why you notice most of them are B2MS. So now let's go to app service plan. Again, either I can go through all services for app service plan, or I can just simply type app service here. And once I can click on app service, and I already have one, but I'll show us how to create app service. So let me click on create. Again, at every point in time that you would be creating maybe app service or any resource, you need to specify your resource. You need to specify your VM. I'm sorry, your subscription, as well as your resource group. Now, because we already have an existing resource group, which is our Textilers VM, sorry, Textilers, what's that name again? Textilers RG. I'm not going to create a new one. I'll just maintain the same resource group so that every resource that we create, especially for the purpose of this training, we can logically, categorize them or arrange them in the Textilers resource group. I hope we can understand with that example. So I have this here. What's the web app name? I'll just maintain the same thing, Textilers, but this time around I'll call it web app. So I can say Textilers web app. Okay, so it to check if that name is fine. Now publish. Whether do you want to publish it as a code or want to publish it as a Docker container. So it depends on what we are trying to, achieve in here. If we want it as a code or a Docker container, I'm not going to say too much on that because I think that's module 3 where we would understand what this Docker container is about. But the idea here is, let's create this. Probably let's use the Docker image. So I'll select Docker. And for the operating system, it wants to know if we want to use a Linux operating system or Windows operating system. So we have that option. So I can say, okay, I want Windows, and I can decide, oh, I want Linux. So I'll maintain Linux since I've used a Windows Server operating system for my VM. I'll let us see, that we can always have Linux as well. Now the region, I would maintain my East US. Now, because I have my VM and all in EastUS, I'll just better still maintain the same region for my app service. Now, this is the part where I will talk about the app service plan. So I've specified my region to be East US. Now, the app service plan we have here, there are different SKUs in terms of if I want to use premium. Let me click on change size so that we see the overview. So we have that environment for our dev and test. We have that environment for production. We have that environment for isolated. And these are the different plans that we could get. Now, when we're talking about cloud gives us the ability to scale up and scale down, or scale in and scale out. Now, the idea of scaling up is when you have to increase your resource. Let's assume I start out with this free F1, or maybe let me even take the list from B1. Now, what B1 means is the features. I'll be able to get a custom domain and SSL. I'll be able to manually scale my instance up to 3 instances. I'm going to get the Azure Compute Unit. I'll have memory. I'll have storage. But if I click on free, the only thing I get is just memory and storage. I'm not going to get the custom domain and option to scale. Now, for instance, let's say I started out with F1, and in the future I decide, okay, because I need a custom domain and all, I can easily scale up this VM to, let's say, B2. Now, all of this is required for if it's just a dev and test environment, which I would go ahead to apply. Okay, although let me show us the other environment. You can see that of production. The production, we have the premium 1 version 2, premium 2 version 2, premium 3 version 3. Now you can see all of the features. For instance, this P1 V2 will get custom domain. We have auto scale up to 20 instances that is available to us. We have a staging slot. We are going to talk about that. We have daily backup that is available. We have traffic manager besides the hardware that is included. Now let's click on that of V2. Now V2, we have equally, almost same as P1 V2. Let's look at P3 V2. Okay, so these are, and there are even additional options that we can check, and this is basically under production. Now we have the isolated, which means it's dedicated. We do not want to share. Now for this, we can see, all of this. Now I don't know if you are taking note of the pricing per month. You can see that the pricing per month, 563 USD per month, 1,127 per month, estimate. Let me take us back to production. You can see the pricing, 73, 174, and all. Let's see dev and test. This is free. This is 1241 USD per month. I think I'll go for free before my Azure credit finishes. Please don't mind me. Okay, so for the purpose of this learning, I'll just maintain free, where I get the 1 gig memory and just storage. But then if I go for this, which is not bad, what will happen is I may have to just delete it later on. So let's say I go for B1 and apply. Now, once that is done, I can go ahead to review and create. Although all of these other tabs have to do with the Docker, the monitoring, and all. The reason why I didn't take us through this is I want us to get to that point, which I think is module 3 or module 4, where we would understand all of these different things, Docker and all, and we are still going to revisit what we've created to gain all understanding. So what we are trying out is with the basics, and we can furthermore build on these basics. So we can just go ahead to see the summary of what you have and create. Okay, so let's go ahead to create. So this is how simply we can create an app service. There are more to this. It's just, at the beginning point, how we go about this deployment. Okay, so while deployment is in progress, let's move on. So next here is Azure Container Service. Azure Container Service. And what do we mean by this Azure Container Service? First of all, let's start with what is containers. Okay, is the idea of container is in case we have multiple virtual machine, just like the way we created that first VM, we now create, as many VM as possible, and all of these VM are running on a physical host. That way we can always, run our we can equally have, you know, multiple container like that on our either physical host or even our virtual host. So in essence, what differs the container service from VM is the fact that for VM, you really don't have to for VM, you get to manage the operating system. But for container, you really don't have to manage, the operating system for your container. Okay, that's one difference. And most of the time, our VM is always an instance of an operating system that we can always connect and manage. But for containers, they are lightweight. And that's why the definition on the screen is telling us that it's lightweight and is designed to be created such that you can scale out and you can even stop dynamically. So in essence, these containers give us that virtualized environment that does not require any operating system management whatsoever. That's what this what's it called, Azure Container Service is about. Okay, so I don't know if that makes sense to us or if we're able to understand, that explanation for Azure Container. Okay, so still moving on, we have Azure Container Instance. Now, for Azure Container Instance, it's now all of this Azure Container and all is actually under the pass offering. Remember, the pass offering is the one that you do not have to, worry yourself about the underlying infrastructure, and therefore this actually fall into that category. I mean, the Azure Container Services actually fall into that category. Now, for Azure Container Instance, this gives us that simplest way where that we can run our container in Azure without having to manage any virtual machine or adopt any additional services whatsoever. Okay, and it's like I said, it gives us that platform as a service where we do not worry about the underlying infrastructure. We can always upload our container, and that way it runs for us. Then we have the Kubernetes, and for Kubernetes it's more or less like that task for where we can do our automation, we can do managing, interact with, this time around, the large number of containers, and that large number of container is known as orchestration. I'm still going to do a deep dive on this as we move on. Like I said, either module 4 or 5, all of these things that I'm just introducing to us right now, I'm going to further do a deep dive on them. So that's about that. Now we can use all of these container, whether it's container instance or the Azure Kubernetes, is the commonly referred to as AKS. Now all of these, we can use it to create a solution for a microservice architecture in our environment. Maybe we want to have, solution putting in smaller pieces or independent pieces. So let's take, for instance, we want to have a website and want to split this website into containers that we have one that will be hosting our front end, we have another one that will be hosting our back end, or we have another one that wants to host storage. We can split that, into this depth separate, or should I say, logical sessions that we can now maintain, we can scale, and we can update them independently. That's the idea of this container that we have. I know I said microservice, and microservice, as we move on, we would explain in depth. I'm just trying not to overwhelm us with too much information, so permit me, and please flow with my speed. All of what I'm doing right now is to introduce some of these services, or should I say workload product to us, and as we move on, we'll take each of them and do a little bit deep dive further into what this is all about. So that's for Azure Container Service. And we can go ahead to deploy the Azure container instance. Let me bring up my lab environment once again. Okay, good. Our web app has completed. Let's go to resource. Okay, so this gives us, what this is our web app. Let me test, let me copy this. That's the website that automatically generates to us. Let's see what brings out. Okay, it's taking a while to load. So the idea here is this URL is something that you can, we create a web app where you can modify it to have your site running. And these are several things we can do within this VM. So we can have our, deployment credentials, deployment slots, which we're still going to talk about. We have configurations, this is loading. I hope it's not my internet being slow this time. This is taking a longer time. This is supposed to, take me to that site where we can see that. So it's taking a little while. So we can have the configuration here that we can edit. We have our authentication in terms of verifying. So we can add identity provider. Now the identity provider, for instance, Azure Active Directory is one of an identity provider. Basically, they perform this modern authentication to us. Okay, then we have the application insight, we have identity backup. We can see some of all of those things here. Now back to app service plan. Should in case, okay, this app service plan, I want to scale up or scale out or scale in or scale out, I can do so from here. So for instance, let me just at random click scale up. So I'm trying to say, okay, I was using B1 and all, but I want to scale up because I want it to be able to accommodate more. I want to scale up to P1, V2. So I can always do that here. And I may be wondering, okay, I'm using B1. I want to scale down. Okay, I want to go back to free. I don't want this monthly charge of $12 and all. I can click on it and apply. So for instance, see my site. This is the default I get. Hey, app service developer, this, but I can go ahead to, publish my website with this web app service that I have created. So while I was saying the other time, I said I can scale down route. Let me apply that. So apply. So you see from the notification here. So what I've done is I'm from my B2 B1 that offers me 1.75 memory total ACU of this. I'm not scaling down to something lower. Maybe because I don't need it. So organization can decide to scale down based on the fact that they are not using some instances or at the moment and all. So they can scale down to, the portion that deem fit. So right now I have successfully scaled down my plan to free, which means at the end of the month, I'm not going to be charged. But if there's something I require to do, I can scale up. I can scale up from this dev and test to production or to isolated, depending on the business requirement. And of course, you can go ahead to modify, this to publish your website. So this is just the default, giving you idea that you can have the website, but of course you can go ahead to modify that into real websites that you want to publish in your environment. So that's for this. I think I have less than 15 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll come back to what's it called? To deploy container instance and all, although it's pretty straightforward, but permit me to just quickly move on so that we can complete this particular slide before our time runs out. But don't worry, we'll still get to do this as we move on. So we also have Azure Virtual Desktop. And for Azure Virtual Desktop, this some of us might know it back then before the renaming to Windows Virtual Desktop, but now it has been properly renamed and we now have it as Azure Virtual Desktop. I'm sure let's not be this something we should be familiar with right by now, that Microsoft, from time to time, whenever there is an improvement and they do make these changes like that. So for our AVD, is actually it gives us that desktop and app virtualization that runs in the cloud. You know, the way you have your desktop on your system, I'm sure you will know what that desktop is on our physical machine and all. That same idea we can have, you know, the desktop as well as the application virtualization of our service that runs on the cloud. So what that means is our user, to be enabled for our user to be able to use the cloud version of their regular Windows from any location. So take for instance, let me see if I can. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can bring down this. Let me do this quickly. Okay, so this I'm trying to show us what my normal desktop looks like in a way. Okay, so this is my, let's say this is my desktop, this desktop. Now, whatever I have on this is my physical machine, right? That you're saying. This is my desktop. So maybe the services I have running, the application, the document, and all of it that I have running for this. The idea for WVD is that I'm going to have that, as well. The hosted on the cloud. I'm going to have, that cloud hosted version from of my window from any location. So the idea is the Azure Virtual Desktop works across, any of the devices that you may be using, whether it's a Windows device, excuse me, please, or it's a Mac device or iOS device or Android device or Linux. We can have that. And the idea is it will work with apps that maybe you use to access via remote desktop. Maybe you have an app that every point in time you are trying to use a remote desktop. Maybe you are the type that you have to use, just take for instance any Dex or Teams viewer to be able to gain access and do some other thing. I'm just trying to give us an idea, but most of the time you can just enjoy this experience using the Azure Virtual Desktop. That's how this works. And why should you even use it in first? Because you might be wondering, Tosin, why do I need it? It's not compulsory, right? Of course, I would say it's the essence of it is just to provide users within organization or users generally that best user experience. So imagine you would have that freedom. Let me use the word freedom. You have freedom to connect to your Azure Virtual Desktop with any device. As far as you have internet connection, you will be able to achieve that. You can use your Azure Virtual Desktop client to, connect to maybe publish Windows desktop as well as application. And also you can even make sure that your session that is hosting your VM runs near maybe your apps, services that connect to your data center or even connect to your cloud. That way, your users in your environment can stay productive and they don't have to encounter any long workloads whatsoever. So that's another thing. And most importantly, I would say it actually enhances security, because with Azure Virtual Desktop, it gives you that centralized security management for your user's desktop alongside with the Azure Active Directory. So with it, you can even enable MFA for signing on this. And you can even decide, okay, you have your data or your apps being separated from your own local hardware. That's your native PC, so to say. So rather than having remote server, you can just use the Azure Virtual Desktop, and it gives you that form of security. So that's something I'll say. And there are other features which we are going to look at in depth. Features like when it comes to performance management, or the fact that you can have multi sessions of your Windows 10 deployment. Those are features, but as we move on, we can dwell in that. Now, don't forget that all of these things, all of these different workload products that I'm introducing to us, we can have, each of them as a core course on its own. That if you're trying, remember this is beginners, probably if you're going intermediate and going advanced, you can specialize to understand each of this workload and learn them, end to end, to understand and to have a deep dive knowledge on them. Okay, if we can decide, okay, I just want to learn, about Kubernetes, for instance, or I just want to understand and fully learn Azure Virtual Desktop, or just maintain on app service, or just container. These are things that we can specialize and just learn on the intermediate, or should I say advanced level, just to mention. I know I have 5 minutes more, okay, but permit me to quickly talk about the Azure networking service. Is that okay, please? Or we can stop here and continue from where we stop next week. Maybe I can just take the 5 minutes to answer questions. So now let's take the remainder 5 minutes, because I've always promised us not to go beyond our time. So any question, please? I think somebody's hand is up. Please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, so my question is with respect to the virtual machines. Like,
Okay.
what's the upper hand of having a virtual machine rather than a physical computer? It's going to cost me so much, because to access a virtual machine, you still need a physical computer and, of course, internet access. So it seems like it's actually inexpensive to own a physical computer than a virtual machine. What's the advantage of a VM over a physical one?
Okay. Thank you very much for asking that question. Now, that's a beautiful question, based on a level, and I would say it has a great benefit. And the idea that you can connect to your device from anywhere, from any device. So let me take it to a way we can relate it. Let's assume you have your PC, right? And on your PC, you have deployed this virtual machine that you can access from the cloud. Now you come over to visit Tosin, and you need to, quickly get some things done. Now Tosin would borrow you a computer, right? But what Tosin has on that computer is for Tosin. None of your workload is on Tosin's computer. None of your things are on Tosin's computer. But with Tosin's computer, if you have a VM, you can connect to your own VM and continue your work. So when we say access from anywhere, it doesn't matter your location, whether you're in Nigeria or outside Nigeria, or wherever you are. That's one. And the fact that you can use any system, whether it's your personal system or somebody else's system, or a borrowed system, or I don't know if you've seen idea of some organization that rent orbs. They actually, should I say, rent or lease, wherein they are not the owners of the computer. They just pay for the fact that, okay, we can use office space. Now, between you and I, that it won't make sense for you to be putting your workload on another people's device, especially if you are going to be having sensitive document, and you now store it on their local machine. Now with VM, you can always get on this system, because you're borrowing the office space to get work done. Maybe you decide, okay, I want to be coming here Monday through Friday, maybe because I'm a freelancer and my home, I really don't have that facilitation. I'm just saying, for instance, is an example. Okay, so you can easily connect to this machine. So it gives you that leverage of being able to utilize it from anywhere. So I'm taking it from the standpoint of personal. Now let's go ahead to the point of organization. So for organization, imagine organization having to buy servers, and host this in their environment. It's more expensive. So organization, rather than buying, because what the servers looks like is a blade, is big. It's just like saying CPU. You know the way CPU looks like. Then the server is flatter, and I don't know if I can look for image of what servers images. just give us an idea. So see, they have to buy all of these racks, the blades, these words. Let me see if I can have, okay, good, perfect. This is an example of server. You have to buy these things. Imagine you need like 4 or you need like 5, because each server will do different things in your organization. Maybe it's one will be for print server, one will be for your domain controller. You have another one that is for your database. You have different things. So having to buy this is more expensive, and God help that organization, after they've bought it, they need to maybe have more memory, or the configuration they have on it is not adequate. Now with virtual machine, you can easily have that scalability feature of scaling up to something bigger and whole. So I see your question is coming from the personal standpoint, which I want to believe I've been able to address, and we've equally likened it to the organization standpoint, which I'll say business standpoint. So I'm sure you are now able to understand, that advantage of owning a VM and why it's more cost effective than actually buying these physical components. I hope I'm able to answer your question, please.
Yes, you have.
Okay, I think we are right on time. This is 12 p.m. I don't know if you have any other question. We can always continue from the link. Now, another thing I would like us to know is if we go through the tabs. So let me quickly share my what's it called, teams. So on our teams, we have different channels. Okay, this Azure channel is for us where we are on right now. Now, if you go to files, you will see the document we have in place. Okay, now if you go to course exercises, you will see the Azure labs that we can practice. Okay, now we have lab 1 and different of this lab that we can practice. We have uploaded this a while ago, and I'm still going to go ahead to continue to update it, to recent one. But I'm saying we have practice lab exercises within this environment, so you can navigate through the channel, the file tab on the channel, to gain access to those resources in there, as well as any exercises that we'll be doing going forward. So thank you very much for your time. We have come to the end of this session. We will equally continue next week. Okay. Bye, everyone. We can continue on our channel. Any question that you have in mind, we would answer that on the channel. Thank you all, and see you
Okay,
next week.
thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye
All right,
bye.
bye.
Bye.